Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing another episode of Jurassic World Evolution 2 Mod Spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and compare them to their real-life fossil counterparts. So today we're up to part 58. So this is the first one after the prehistoric marine species pack. So a couple updates and a couple new mods, a couple paleo edits, all that. Nice to see some mods coming back already. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one. So we're going to be starting off today. We've got a kind of triple pack by Pickle, who loves to do his paleo edits. So we've got, first up, we've got the Ceratosaurus, who's going to be starting off with the oldest and going through kind of the evolution a little bit. So we're going to be starting off with Ceratosaurus. So look at that. Oh, what the hell happened in there? It was like dirt rolling on its side. But here, we're going to have a look at some Ceratosaurus. So let's pick one that's real pretty. Let's pick, we'll pick you. I like you. So let's have a look at you. So this is our Ceratosaurus. So we're going to be starting off with the head as we normally go. So we can see the head's probably the thing that got majorly changed the most. The Jurassic Park Ceratosaurus is basically just a T-Rex with a nose horn. But we can see a lot of the changes there. Much more thinner skull. Ceratosaurus is actually a pretty thin skull. And you can see it's got those lovely lips. If we have one with an open mouth. We must have one with an open mouth somewhere. But normally it's given really, really long teeth. But a lot of the times that doesn't account for the tooth slippage. So often when they get fossilized, like a lot of fossils, because a lot of the teeth are held in there by gum, so that's the gum in there, the teeth can fall out. They're not really held as firmly as like a lot of mammals. So teeth fall out, and often we can reconstruct the people don't account for that, so that really gives Ceratosaurus that really long teeth look. But a lot of that would have been in within gums, and also in the sockets in themselves. So that's something that you see a lot in even like monitor lizards. Like basically they're all gum. You can hardly see their teeth. So I think that's something that's always greatly underestimated in dinosaurs. But we can see some wonderful change of the face here. A little bit longer. A little bit like longer. It's almost like a flat bit of cardboard coming up that way. And then we can see Ceratosaurus has 3 horns. It's got the big nose horn there. That's really well reconstructed there. You see lots of like rugose texture or like rough texture to it. So that would most likely support quite a bit of keratin. And we see the same across the eyes here. They've got the 2 ones across the nose. So Ceratosaurus has got the 2 there. Across those big eyes there. Then we got this nice neck here. A little bit of a dewlap. Really, really nice. Big round neck. And then you can see the osteoderms. They are known for having a row of osteoderms down their back. You can see that's a little bit extended. There's kind of like 3 rows going down this way. But you can see that goes all the way down to the tail, which is really, really cool. Really love that aspect. But he's also been a little bit like leaned and meaned, a little bit better to fit the anatomy. It's got a very like oval-shaped body, as you can see there. The pubic boots comes down here, as you can see, like in most theropods, things like that. Ceratosaurus is also cool because they've got 4 fingers here. You can see the 4 fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see the second one's kind of the biggest, longest one. You can see the big claw, and the last one doesn't have any nails on it, so it's typically those 3 digits. That's one of the things that sets Ceratosaurus apart, and the later Abelisaurs, as we'll get into. And look at those big legs, and even that longer tail. Look at that longer tail. It looks so much nicer. As I keep mentioning, Jurassic Park often underestimates or makes the dinosaur's tail length way too short, as you're going to see here. It looks quite a bit nicer. You can see how long that is. Really fits the animal perfectly, and this one's probably the closest to the JP one that we've got at the moment. But yeah, really, really awesome. And you can see some changes to the texture as well. Got some big scales in there. So we'll talk about that with Carnotaurus. We can see some changes with the scales in there. Really, really cool. So I don't know what's going up there, but we're going to let them go off and do their thing. Make sure they get out of the way. So next up, we have got, going right to the late Cretaceous, we have got Majungasaurus from Madagascar. So you can see this Majunga definitely got a lot of love. So you can see how interesting this animal is here. So Majungasaurus, very, very interesting in terms of its evolution. It's from Madagascar. So it's and also related to like more Indian kind of abelisaurs, like Rajasaurus. But you can see it's got a very interesting look to it. So you can see it's got quite a long neck. It's got a really long neck compared to a lot of other abelisaurs. And still got that big rounded face. They've got quite a short, stout face. Quite powerful jaws apparently. And they've got that little horn going on, which is really interesting. Big neck, and then you can see another speculative aspect of their design. Pickle added these really long spikes down the tail, head and neck there. It looks really, really nice. I love that it changes the design, and I love the colors as well. I like the red along the neck here, and then on the hands. I think that came out really nicely. See some changes of texture there. Added some lips, just slightly more accurate faces. You can see the later abelisaurs are very squished in faces, and a little bit of a horn there. Looks very, very interesting. Big lips, all that. Long neck, and you can see the very round body. These guys have got like a rectangular oval body, like it's a really long egg, which is really interesting. And then you can see the hands are much more accurate now. In the original game, they're kind of like normal theropod arms as they come in like this and hold it. But these guys have got really, really short arms. You can see the 4 fingers there. So you can see that's like the humerus, and then the radius on are really small, and then they've got all these little fingers there. And they held back like that, unlike in the original, as they kind of hold them like your normal theropod, but these guys hold them back like that. Really, really interesting. And then you can see a little bit of a longer tail, and these guys have really, really short legs for abelisaurs. They get the nickname, they almost look like a sausage, but it probably could have been to help their ecology, things like that. We don't really know why they were so short. Maybe they would have been better at running around and lower profile, maybe in the jungle, things like that. Probably weren't like well adapted for high speed runs like Carnotaurus was, but really, really cool. Definitely love this guy. Love the skin with the red on it. That looks cool. And even the pale skin here, that looks really nice. Looks like a real animal. Definitely, Pickle just gets the animals right. He just makes them feel like living animals, and I love how he does it. So, really like those designs. So, last but certainly not least, we've got everyone's favorite big bad horned meat-eating bull. We've got Carnotaurus. Look at this wonderful guy. So let's have a look at this one. Let's pick one. Which one should we pick? I'll have a look at you. I like the colors on you. Oh no, you're not in the sun. Oh wait, it's rolling. We don't want to worry about that. I don't want it to roll. I hate it when it rolls. I'll have a look at you because you're the closest in the sun. Okay. So here we have Carnotaurus. Everyone's favorite kind of abelisaur, kind of probably the most famous one. But we're going to start off with the head, of course. We can see Carnotaurus has got a really, really smushed in tall head. It's almost like a tall square, and it's a really, really interesting shape. Well adapted, apparently, for catching small prey. They didn't have that strong of a bite force, apparently. Though it would have been probably still pretty good, like still enough to probably take your arm off or rip your shoulders off, but comparatively, probably not super strong. But still really cool, and probably still enough to kill its prey. And then you can see these wonderfully big horns. We don't know what they were for, but most likely maybe for jousting or sexual display or potentially like fighting, things like that. A lot of these weird structures are kind of things like that. But we can see also the keratin, because recent studies on animals like Borrelia pelta, which was quite well preserved, we have a good understanding now of what amount of keratin was to the bone core. And comparing to modern animals like cows and other animals that have horns that are like with bone cores, it suggests that typically keratin adds another like half of length. So if you have a meter long horn, keratin would add another half a meter, so you'd have a meter and a half horn. So that's kind of what's going on with Carnotaurus here, using that general rule. And you can see quite a bit wider at the base. Looks really, really nice. Very strong profile there. It makes it look really, really interesting. Really, really awesome. Then we got that big abelisaur neck that you can kind of see there. Kind of a long neck comparatively. And then we can see those tiny front arms, as you can see. Not like the prehistoric planet ones where they've got the blue on the bottom. But still really, really cool that you get to see that. And they also have like a bit of a spike going on there. I'm actually not sure. Yeah, you can kind of see it in there. There's like a bit of a spike going on, which is a bit interesting for Carnotaurus. That sets it apart. Also, that quite big scapula as well, which is also kind of weird. And you can see that pubic boot coming down there. Very, very round body and very, very big, powerful legs, because Carnotaurus is thought of to be quite of a adept runner, so these guys would have most likely chased down medium to small size prey, or probably good at moving across like open areas. It's a bit of an open runner, so like savannas and deserts and those kind of habitats. Though I imagine they probably, like most animals today, they lived in a variety of habitats, but most likely open, as they were good at chasing prey. And then you can see that quite long tail going on there. We love seeing those long tails made a bit longer because Jurassic Park always likes to make them too short. And what's really cool as well, and we saw in the other designs the changes with the kind of the textures there, there's a few bigger feature scales, as you kind of see going on there, because we do have quite well preserved fossil skin from Carnotaurus. And that suggests that they had, instead of having the kind of rows going down like that, like a lot of reconstructions, they had kind of larger feature scales within lots of smaller scales. And it actually is believed to be a lot more adapted for thermoregulation. So similar to things like elephants that have quite wrinkly skin, it would allow them to have more surface area to better dissipate heat. So it's an adaptation for that, especially if this is an active animal that's an endotherm or warm-blooded. So running around and being that big would have created a lot of body heat, so this would allow them to get rid of that body heat to stay at an optimal body temperature easier. So that's a really, really cool thing that we know about Carnotaurus now. Carnotaurus is just such a cool animal, and it's definitely awesome that we know a lot about it. So yeah, really, really cool. So, can let you run off and do your thing. So these three wonderful animals were done by Pickle, doing a paleo edit. We got another paleo edit from Pickle coming up in the lagoon, but we won't go on about that yet. So next up, we've got by HasnWkaTree and Game Videos for Life, we have got Eustreptospondylus. So this one got remastered with new skins, but I don't know what is happening with my thing today. But anyway, here we have our new Eustreptospondylus. Really, really awesome animal. So, Eustreptospondylus, which means true Septospondylus. These guys are megalosaurs, so related to Megalosaurus, Torvosaurus, animals like that. They're from the Oxfordian stage of late Jurassic, so between 163 and 154 million years ago, and from southern England when Europe was kind of a bunch of scattered islands. So this was first discovered in Oxford around 1870, where they found the skeleton, and the remains were acquired from a local bookseller called James Parker, who brought them to Professor John Phillips, who lived in Oxford as well, who described the bones in 1871, but did not name them. Then, at the time, they were thought to be the most complete skeleton of a large theropod ever found, which is quite interesting. And then in 1890, it was brought to Oxford and referred to Megalosaurus, and then referred to Streptospondylus, and then Nos vertebrae and other things. And now they kind of moved on. Different species change, species of Megalosaurus, and then it became Eustreptospondylus in 1964, which means true turned vertebrae, which is quite interesting. So as I mentioned, the holotype was taken out of by W. Parker in the claystone in a marine layer of the Oxford clay formation that dates back to about 162 million years ago, as a rather complete skeleton, but it does have missing elements like the lower jaws, lower arms, things like that, and is the only specimen ever referred to Eustreptospondylus oxoniensis, which is this species here, which is quite interesting. In terms of description, the main specimen of Eustreptospondylus found is not fully grown, but it's estimated that by Paul in 1998 it would have been about 4.6 meters long or 15 feet long and about 218 kilograms or 481 pounds, with various size estimates centering the average size, and there's a hypothetical adult length of like 6 meters or 20 feet and about half a ton. You can see the skull of this guy is rather pointed, and they have large horizontally oriented nostrils, and they have no lacrimal horn with a thick skull roof, things like that. Quite interesting. And in terms of its classification, as I mentioned, it's a megalosaurid, but it's in its kind of own group called Eustreptospondylidae, or Indley, if we say that. So this is like a really early relative. This is kind of after the split of the Spinosaurs and the Megalosaurs, but this is kind of like right at the beginning of that. So these guys would lead into animals like Megalosaurines, like Megalosaurus and Torvosaurus, and Afrovenators, kind of like Afrovenator and Povetosaurus and things like that. So, like other theropods, these guys fed on smaller dinosaurs and, of course, pterosaurs, probably scavenged on a lot of carcasses of marine reptiles, fish like that. And there's a fossil known from where it was found. Because it was mostly archipelagos, it believed these guys were quite good swimmers. So they might have been able to swim across islands like not bearded dragons, Komodo dragons can. But not all paleontologists agree with this hypothesis. Some think they were either swept out to sea or caused by a flood. But it is possible they could be swimming around. And they've often been used to betray like a concept of insular dwarfism, where animals on islands that are typically big, like elephants, big sauropod dinosaurs, hippos, deer, they get smaller when they get onto islands since there's not enough resources for them to maintain their large body size. So typically they are thought to be island-dwelling species, but a lot of that is actually not because they just didn't realize that the holotype is actually subadult. So the subadult is not a fully grown animal. So we technically do not know the adult size of an Eustreptospondylus. But taxonomy being taxonomy might have actually found it. I don't know. We don't know. But yeah, really, really cool animal. Nice to see this represented. And of course, famous because of walking with dinosaurs. Really, really cool. And we get to see the updated skins. So HasnWkaTree and Game Videos for Life did a good job with that. So yeah, if you guys want to take another look at this guy, of course. I don't know what's up with my thing, but whatever. Really, really awesome. So we're going to let you run off and do your thing. And then we've got another update. So this one's from Master Doot. How can you not love Master Doot? We have gotten Maip. As long as you guys don't walk in front of him. Yes, you are going to walk in front. Of course you are. So let's... So it's Maip. So this is Maip Macrothorax. This is a really nice mod. Let's see if we can get it. I love look at you. Oh no, we'll let you walk a bit. Okay, so this is my Macrothorax. So this was a genus of very large Megaraptoran that was found in the late Cretaceous, right at the end of the Cretaceous, around the Maastrichtians. That's the last stage of the Cretaceous. That's when T-Rex and Triceratops lived. And then after that, it was the asteroid that killed all the dinosaurs, or not even dinosaurs, and led to the Cenozoic. So those are like right at the end. Is from Santa Cruz, Argentina, from the Carrillo Formation. So this genus is known from a single species, Maip Macrothorax, which is known from an incomplete skeleton, and actually represents the largest Megaraptorid ever found, and is known from South America, and is possibly the largest in the world. So this was only just described in last year, so it's pretty interesting. So the holotype, as I mentioned, was found in Santa Cruz province and El Chafete in 2019. The specimen was found disarticulated over about an area of 5 to 3 square meters. And the known fossil has things like the several dorsal vertebrae, a scapula, a partial right pubis, and things like that. And some of these bones were described in 2019 by Novus et al. However, they were include some bones that were previously unknown to other Megaraptorids. But then it was first announced as a preprint in 2021 and then revealed in 2022, as described by Ronaldo et al. Its species name or genus name, Maip, refers to a malicious being in Anorkic mythology, known as the Shadow of Death. Perfect name for a big theropod. And that kills in cold wind. And the specific name Macrothorax means just Greek for long torso, or basically long chest, as it had a big wide chest, which is quite interesting. So it is the largest Megaraptorid ever found. It's up there with kind of like Torvosaurus and like Tarbosaurus as being like really big. So they're estimated to be about 9 to 10 meters in life, and it's the largest Megaraptorid known. And it's believed to be because these guys would have been increasing in body length and in size as the Carnotaurus went extinct around the early late Cretaceous in South America. So basically the Megaraptorids took over that top predator ecosystem and got bigger and bigger. It's also hypothesized that because of the lack of large predators, they would have occupied that niche. And along with Abelisaurs and Unilagines, they became the primary big predators of these ecosystems. An analysis also showed that, we'll talk about the analyses that showed that all Megaraptorids, like from Australia, South America, and things like that, there's kind of 3 clades. So, well, in size. So the Megaraptorans from Asia, South America, and Australia got about 4 to 4.5 meters, or 13 to 15 feet, during like the earliest Birmanian Aptian stage. So that's like the mid-Cretaceous. And then got bigger from like 4 to 4.5 to 6 meters in Australia and South America around the early Tenorian. And then right up to the end of the Cretaceous is when they got to the largest. This is about 7 to 10 meters. So you can see there's a gradual from like the mid-Cretaceous, early Cretaceous up into the late Cretaceous. You can see there's a general trend, especially in South America and places like that. They're getting bigger and bigger. And what's really interesting is that, very similar to a lot of other dinosaurs like sauropods and other theropods, we know that these guys would have had a respiratory system very similar to that of modern birds. So they had the multiple air sacs and hollow vertebrae to help hold these air sacs. That is more similar to birds rather than modern reptiles and crocodiles, which is quite interesting. So as I mentioned, these guys are in their own kind of group. They're Megaraptoridae, so they are related to a lot of other Megaraptorans. The study that described this guy splits them into different clades. There's Megaraptorids, and then there's kind of the Megaraptoridae that includes things like Australovenator, who's quite basal, and then there's clade A and clade B. So clade A has like Megaraptor and Mosasaurus and kind of those first older kind of Megaraptorids, and then clade B has the older ones like Aestrodon, Maib, and Orcaraptor. But these guys are most likely related to Coelurosaurs, so things like Tyrannosauria. So basically, while T-Rex got a big head, these guys got big arms. So that's really, really interesting. And other Megaraptorids like Fukuiraptor, Beta Basal, and Australovenator, things like that. And then you have the Clade B, which are pretty much South American. So very likely South America is where these guys kind of got their biggest, unless we find evidence otherwise, of course. In terms of paleoecology, these guys are mentioned from the Maastrichtian, so they would have lived quite at the end of the Cretaceous. They would have lived with other dinosaurs like Iracusa, which was an ornithopod, Nullotitan, a big titanosaur. There's also remains of ankylosaurs, iguanodontians, hadrosaurs, noasaurids, and unilagids from that formation. And in terms of non-dinosaurs, there's frogs, there's fish, there's mammals, mosasaurs, snakes, lizards, and gastropods known. And there's another very fragmentary Megaraptorid, but we don't know if it's Maib or not, so there could eventually be another Megaraptorid living in this habitat. So very, very interesting. And you can see it's got remade last time. I really like the colors on this one, especially like this one. Maybe the color's not so bright, but definitely come out nicely. Definitely like Master Dude trying to give it some new colors, and looks quite awesome, and it definitely fits the new Maib look and looks really, really awesome. Definitely a big fan. So we're going to let you run off and do your thing. I like this one. Kind of the bluish. Does fit quite nicely. Really, really awesome. So next up, we're going to be moving on to the lagoons. We've got a couple new animals from the lagoon. So next up, we've got another Pickle mod, another remaster. We have got a Mosasaurus. So you can see here, wonderful Mosasaur. As you can see, it's definitely been shrunken up a bit. Oh, you want to have a look in the water. There you are. Big, beautiful boy. So you can see there's definitely some changes. The original one he made was much longer. But one thing as well is that a lot of animals, they get a lot bulkier. They get much more like a torpedo. So they get a bit more compact, and they have like a soft or a really big like side, and then they kind of taper down, so it's very much like a torpedo. So the original one was kind of a little bit too long, but you can see some of the changes here. Definitely got that big wonderful face there and been a bit bulked up. Really love this big Mosasaur face. So this is Mosasaurus hoffmanni typically. That's the largest one. Got about 12, 13 meters long. Maybe a little bit bigger based on some fragmentary remains, but really conclusively biggest we can say is 13 meters, which is still like almost as big as humpback whales, don't get me wrong. But they would have been much thinner and kind of weight and stuff. They weren't quite as big bulky as whales, but still quite a big animal. So really, really cool in that regard. So big head adapted for crushing and biting into big animals. You can see a little bit bulkier around the neck there, which I love to see. Big bulky neck, and you can see some changes to the flippers there. You can also see some changes to the texture that he did on like the last one. You can see lots of tiny scales. We know quite a lot about the mosasaur scales actually, and they would have had scales very similar to like modern snakes, like keeled scales as well. But the thing is as well, they wouldn't have changed size, so it would have been like if you looked at a mosasaur from a distance, it wouldn't really look like they had scales at all. It looked like it had quite smooth skin, as you can kind of see here. But these guys would have had quite smooth skin in that regard, and you can see that on here, which is really, really cool. None of that big osteoderm stuff that the original one had. And then you kind of move down here, you can see it's got a little bit leaner and meaner. And then the the tail's definitely been shortened, though I would probably make it a bit wider on the side there, since these guys would have been quite powerful swimmers. So this is a great example of convergent evolution, like with sharks and ichthyosaurs and whales. These guys had quite evolved like a fluke, you could say, on the end of the tail there, and that would have come down here, so it would have been like, and then they come down, basically to better able to propel themselves through the water. I'd say, yeah, maybe make that a little bit thicker, like a bit of a caudal keel. So the caudal keel is muscles, and it's a kind of big that comes out through here that gives them quite a bit of power. If you notice it, if you look at like a shark, like head on like that, you'll definitely notice it, and it's quite powerful. So I definitely probably extend that a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. But other than that, pretty good. And I love the fluke there. It really fits perfect. It really does fit the mosasaur. Only gripe I have is probably make that tail a little thicker, but definitely looks really, really awesome. Definitely a big fan of that. Love to see a nice new mosasaur. So yeah, definitely let him go off and do his thing. So that was done by Pickle, another lovely Pickle mod. So that's not what we want. Next up, we have got a newer animal. We haven't seen this one before. This is by JWE2. We have got Cervicosaurus. We have a look at the other one. I like the other one's colours a little bit more. So let's have a look at you. Just fast forward a little bit just to get you out of there. While doing a social animation. We'll let you do that. Oh, that's cute. Alright. We'll have a look at you, because you look like you're in a pretty angle. So we'll have a look at you. Cool. So this is Cervicosaurus. I believe you say that, or Ceratosaurus. These guys are an extinct genus of pliosaur, or brachiokinds pliosaurid, from the Paja Formation in the Colombian eastern ranges of the Andes. So quite an interesting place. And type species name is Cervicosaurus vilte. So they get their name from the Cervicosaurus runs to the Shatska village where the fossils were found, and lizard obviously meaning saurus meaning lizard in Greek. And the species name vitale means life, so it's the Sakura life lizard, you could say. And because of the life of the fossil find this spark, so it's really, really cool. It's like really big thing for the village, which is quite cool. So these guys were quite a large pliosaur. So they measured about 10 to 11 meters. So up there with animals like Carnotaurus, or Carnotaurus might not be an actual genus, but animals like that, really big animals in that regard, and weighed about 13 metric tons, or about 14 short tons as an adult. The holotype itself was found in 2013 and is known from a nearly complete skull and post-cranial elements, including complete hind limb and various vertebrae. They have a reduced number of mandibular teeth compared to a lot of other pliosaurs, 17 to 18 versus 25 to 40 in other pliosaurs. Quite slender teeth as well. And while the previous slender estimate is almost about 10 meters long, it's actually interpreted as a subadult, so it could have got a little bit bigger. So subadult doesn't mean it's still growing a lot, but it means it's pretty much, it's like a teenager, or pretty close to finishing growing. So maybe like a big one, maybe 12, 13 meters, but not going to get too much huger than that. So yeah, really interesting animal. Not too different in terms of its ecology compared to other pliosaurs. So it would have been big animal feeding on, of course, prey like larger plesiosaurs, large fish and sharks and things like that. We'll have a look at the body. It looks really, really nice. It actually fits the fossil pretty well. It's got quite a big head. As I mentioned, the head is quite big. Really, really nice. The only thing I'd say that's wrong is the tail. You can see that weird kind of torpedo fluke going on, or like a missile. We know, well, it's been a little bit controversially talked about that they know that we had most plesiosaurs and pliosaurs had a fluke on the end and tail, but whether it was horizontal or vertical, we don't know, which is quite interesting. It's a little bit of a debate there, so it's cool to do a little bit of free reign, though I would probably fix that on this guy, maybe even make it vertical or horizontal. Which is quite interesting. But yeah, really cool. So as I mentioned, it's one of the actually 4 pliosaurs known from the Pickle formation. That includes Arctosaurus, Stephorhinosaurus, and Macrothorax, which I've covered before. This is kind of a alternative species name for the Colombian species of Carnotaurus, which is now its own kind of genus. And also lived with lots of elasmosaurs such as Kamaosaurus and Electrocales, if you say that. Also lived with marine turtles such as Desmochales, another turtle called Leverchales, and Ophthalmosaurid ichthyosaurs, so related to Ophthalmosaurus, Mosasaurus, and Colacia, if you say that. But yeah, really, really cool, interesting formation. We've been quite rich, especially with a lot of these large marine reptiles, obviously occupying different niches and things like that. So really, really cool. Awesome animal to get, so we're going to let them swim off and do their thing. So now we're moving on into the new animals. We've got these new guys as well. So next up, we have got by Master Doot again. So Trippy28 did the Sarcosaurus. Kamaosaurus is done here by good old Master Doot. So let's have a look at this guy here. Let's have a good look at you. We're gonna have a look at this one. I love his colors. I'll just get him to move a little bit. Here we are. Ooh, no, don't know what's up with the cameras today, but we'll just go roll with it. Love the color on this one. So Kamaosaurus, which is named the Caramai lizard. These guys are an extinct genus of Carcharodontosaurid theropod from the early Cretaceous. So these guys are known only from the holotype, which is a left entry with teeth. So this specimen was found in the early 1970s of the Luochimin formation of the Tulgu group. So this was in China, so it's a very Chinese animal. And it's from the Valgurian Aptian stage of about 140 to 100 million years ago. Its location is near Waru in the Junar Basin and was first named by Chinese paleontologist Dong Ziming in 1973 as Kamaosaurus petrolectus, I believe you say that. There was another species also known Giganteus, which was popular being like a 21 meter long animal, but is a Nomendubian and has actually now been named to a sauropod, which is Kamaosaurus. So it's thought to be much bigger, but not anymore. Okay, so it was actually thought to be a Nomendubian due to its scanty remains, but its phylogenetic position is actually kind of uncertain, but it's usually regarded as quite basal, tentinarine as well. This is Carcharodontosaurid, as I mentioned, has been described as well. So in 2011, it was the redescription of the holotype by Brussetti, who has vised for like Dominion, and a few other paleontologists, described it as a valid genus of Carcharodontosaurid, and suggests it's actually closely related to basal Carcharodontosaurid like Eocarchara, and is and a clade kind of derived Carcharodontosaurus, like, of course, Carcharodontosaurus, animals like that. So yeah, really, really cool. So this is kind of shows there, even in Asia, there were some quite large Carcharodontosaurids. They kind of took over, and then as the Carcharodontosaurus went extinct, that's when tyrannosaurs in America and Asia, in Asia and America, kind of took over and become the largest animals. And then down south, as they went extinct, Megaraptorids and animals like that became the more top predators or got bigger because the Carcharodontosaurids went extinct. So that's really, really cool. And a really, really cool animal as well. I like the interpretation. So as I mentioned, it's not really well known as it's just a dentary pretty much. But and a few other scant bits, but you can see really done interesting design. I like the double hump on it. I like the spikes. I love the colors. This red and black and gray always go well together. It's like the best combination ever. Don't get me started about that. But yeah, really, really awesome. All sorts of really awesome colors and designs. That's part of one of the things that Jurassic World Evolution 2, I think, excels in, with like all the variety and things like that. So definitely a big fan. So what I'm going to do is quickly get rid of these guys. I'm going to skip forward in the video, and I'm going to get the next animal out. So let's do that quickly. And we are back. So we're going to have a look at the next animal and our last animal. So this one was a bit of a group effort. This one was done by Viral Cyclops, Game Videos for Life, Master Doot, and quite a few other people. You've got everyone's favorite herbivorous Permian synapsid, kind of the companion to Dimetrodon, we have got Edaphosaurus. With these wonderful guys here. Let's have a look. We're probably all going to recognize this one, so we're going to use this as our example. So everyone's favorite Walking with Monsters colors. So this is Edaphosaurus. So Edaphosaurus means pavement lizard because it has quite a dense cluster of teeth. They're a genus of extinct Elaphosaurid synapsid, so they are more closely related to us than they are to like T-Rex and things like that. They lived in what is now North America and Europe between 303 to 272 million years ago during the late Carboniferous and in the early Permian. So this was first described by Edward Deaker Cope in 1882. We're naming it for dental pavement because of its jaws. And really, really cool. We're going to talk about it a little bit, its discovery. There's about 6 species described from across America and different times, things like that. They described in 1882 were based on a crushed skull and left lower jaw from the Texas red beds as well, and classified it as a member of the Pelicosauria and created a new family, Edaphosauridae. And kind of was weird because it looked a lot like Dimetrodon with just like a herbivore head, but they actually evolved that big sail independently of each other. So it's a great example of convergent evolution, which is quite interesting. And then moving on to the 1940s and stuff and into 1979, there's been new species kind of described and all the time been reassigned as well. So we'll talk about a little bit of their biology. So these guys range in size quite a bit. They get between 0.5 to 3.5 meters or 1.6 feet to 11.5 feet in length and can weigh over 300 kilograms. And keeping with that tiny head, it's got a much shorter neck and its vertebrae are reduced in length as well, with a deep tail, short limbs, wide rib cage to hold that big gut, and things like that. And would have had a big gut with symbiotic bacteria to break down cellulose and things like that. And like its more famous relative, Dimetrodon had a big sail, as you can kind of see here. So in terms of its skull, you can see it's got a very interesting skull, quite a small skull and relatively broad and short, and was short of its body. Powerful muscles and those pavement teeth, as we mentioned, they would have been well adapted, contrasting to the more carnivorous Dimetrodon. These guys were much more herbivorous. So these guys would have had pig-like teeth that, and also would have been able to move their teeth front to back to digest and kind of break through a lot of the plants that it was eating. So it was one of the first big vertebrate herbivores in the world. So that's really, really interesting for their evolution. Early descriptions of this guy actually considered them to be eating things like mollusks and stuff like that. But nowadays, because of looking at tooth wear and things like that, these guys would have been plant eaters and one of the earliest plant eaters as well. And they also compared them with other large plant eaters of their time, like the large reptilomorph Didactys as well, and lived around the same time. And though early species or early relatives of Edaphosaurids may have actually been insects as well. So yeah, these guys were among the first kind of big herbivores. So this is like the Permian equivalent of big cows and elephants and things like that. So really, really cool. In terms of its sail, as I mentioned, it was supported by like huge spines going down the body there. And while compared to the sail of Dimetrodon, the vertebral spines or the vertebral spines are kind of heavier and shorter in comparison. And these guys would have evolved their dorsals independently from the Dimetrodon and Ceratosaurus, which is the family Sphenodontidae, which includes Dimetrodon and Ceratosaurus, and a really great example of convergent evolution as they evolved them together. So very similar to the debate, of course, of why did Dimetrodon have its sail? People ask, why did Edaphosaurus have its sail? So there's lots of theories like storage areas for fat, sexual and species recognition displays, types of displays, wind sailing, camouflage, body temperature control, so being able to better control their body temperatures and things like that. There's been lots of proposed kind of shapes and things like that. But each sail and stuff kind of really shows that between the species, they would have been different and more elaborate. So it suggests it may have been used as more of a display thing. Though it could also have multiple uses. It's been suggested to kind of hold fat like a camel's hump. Some argued as well they could create air turbulence and kind of use it to sail. But recent research suggests that it may have been used for either as kind of raised doubts whether they would have been used for thermoregulatory things, so being able to control their body temperature. So the most recent things, and why most animals kind of have these big weird structures like antlers and horns and sails and everything, it's because of display. They just want to show off to the ladies, or they just want to show off to each other and say, "Hi, I'm the big macho man," or "I'm the big girl on the block." That's kind of the most reasons these big weird structures evolve, which I think a lot of people kind of overthink a little bit. But really, really cool. We also have a little bit of studies into their bone histology and suggest that these guys grew more slowly than like their predators Dimetrodon, which had a higher elevated kind of metabolic rate. So these guys, Idiophosaurus may have been more endothermic as well. And even plant-eating early synapsids, the adhesives were the growth, lower growth rate than these guys. So these guys may have been somewhat endothermic, or just grew a little bit slower, or a little bit faster than the adhesives, but slower than things like Dimetrodon. And that suggests these guys would have been slower growing, things like that, and suggests that these guys may have had rapid growth over seasons as well. So that's quite interesting. So this is an animal that's also quite common in popular culture. Kind of in comparison, there was an extinct, a genus that doesn't exist anymore has now been lumped into Idiophosaurus, Kamaosaurus. That was quite common. So usually they've been depicted with like Dimetrodon skulls, and the people will get the wrong reconstruction as well. But this has been quite common in popular culture as being prey for things like Dimetrodon and kind of the earliest kind of, and especially because of how important these guys were in the evolution of mammals as well, as these guys were kind of an early synapsid that's become quite famous as a companion to Dimetrodon and their prey, things like that, which is really, really cool. So yeah, awesome animal. Definitely love these guys. You can see the different colors here. Love the Permian one. I just picked out all the nice colored ones. You can see this one looks like the one from Walking with Monsters. This is a nice stock one, Permian one. And this is based on a specimen, I think. And I really love that big eye spot there. Looks really, really nice. There's all sorts of different skins and patterns that you can get. I like a lot of the viral Cyclops ones, but I just decided to pick the nice ones because since now you can favorite them and have a look at the Walking with Monsters one, because I know we all love Walking with Monsters. Probably one of the best documentaries. I don't like it as much as like Walking with Dinosaurs or Walking with Beasts, but I still think just being Walking with, it's still pretty good. It's just when you compare yourself to Walking with Dinosaurs or Walking with Beasts, it's kind of like just a really high bar. I just wish it had the 6-episode format like the other two, Walking with Beasts and Walking with Dinosaurs. But yeah, still a really, really awesome mod, so we're going to let them go off and do their thing and finish up this video. So yeah, look at these beautiful guys. What's up with my camera today, but still cool. Really, really wonderful animals here. So, yeah, we'll let them walk off or watch them. So, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified of anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.